So my name's Chris Palermo, Global Sales Specialist, whatever that means. But basically what it means is that I spend the bulk of my day telling stories, the story of Cisco collaboration. And today we're going to spend the next 7 minutes or so talking about the story of Webex Teams. In typical story format, we're going to break this down into 3 acts. Act 1, we're going to introduce the hero of this story, Webex Teams. Act 2, we're going to talk about the conflict that our hero is going to have to overcome. And by the time we get to Act 3, we're going to show you how our hero has been transformed. So at the end of this 7 minutes, if there's one thing that I want everybody to walk away with, it's an understanding of how we've gone from down there with Webex Teams to up there and the growth and change that's happened. So like any good hero story, you have to have the good origin story, and the same is true for Webex Teams. Began about 4.5 years ago, launching as Project Squared. So it was a bit of an ambitious launch, because if you look at a lot of our products, a lot of them were by way of acquisition. Webex, Jabber, a lot of the video portfolio. Webex Teams was organically built from the ground up within the walls of Cisco. So it was very ambitious to do that and also try to do all the collaboration workloads, calling, messaging, meeting in the cloud. While we're doing that, we're obviously running up against some antagonists in our story here. One of them, our friends over at Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams, they're kind of the character that, you know, can be a little annoying at times. They show up everywhere you are, and it's just more a matter of how do you just accept them, because you know they're not going away. Then you have our friends at Slack. So Slack's kind of like the cool kid in town, and the more you learn about them, you're like, you know, they're kind of one-dimensional. I don't know if I really like this person. And then others at the time like HipChat. And not to give you too much of a spoiler alert here, but the guys in the middle end up killing off these guys by the end of the story. So while all this is going on, obviously that's validation that we're in the right place. Team collaboration in the cloud. What we're doing is really what we need to. So at the end of Act 1, we have a bit of a transformation. We go from Project Squared to Slack. And big marketing push. I'm sure somebody's got some Slack paraphernalia in the audience, maybe some Slack socks. But big push. And while it's continuing to grow, now we start to hit some of the confusion and some of the obstacles. So some of the initial confusion, Jabber. I probably spent about 2 years dealing with customers and internal Cisco about why is there Jabber if there's also Webex Teams? Why don't they talk to each other? Is one going away? Yeah, I don't get it. And you know, I think to be honest, back then, I'm not sure we got it either. To add to that confusion, why are there meetings in Teams but also Webex meetings? Add further, why are we trying to do everything in the cloud and we just acquired BroadSoft with world-class cloud calling, and that's not part of this? So there was confusion all over the place. And add to that, there were some obstacles. We heard from customers various reasons why they weren't able to do an enterprise rollout. We were listening. We saw the confusion. We saw these obstacles, and we tried to figure out how do we take it from here. Surprise twist at the end of Act 2, everything goes under the big Webex umbrella. So whereas before Webex was really known more for cloud meetings, now it's known meetings, messaging, calling, devices, and Webex Teams is part of it. That was part of the rebrand there. So now as we enter Act 3, this is part where the confusion starts to clear and our character starts to get transformed. One area around Jabber. If you look at Jabber today versus Webex Teams today, almost identical. Go over to the booth, check out Jabber 12.7, which is coming out in August. You cannot tell the difference. The iconography is the same, the color palette's the same, the UI, the UX, all of it the same. And that's on purpose, because now it doesn't matter if you want to collaborate in the cloud or on-prem, it's the same experience. If you want to move from one to the other, same experience. So in addition to the experience alignment, there was also the technical alignment. So Shane, who was on earlier, talked about team messaging mode. There's also hybrid message service. So whereas before, separate islands, now we have multiple ways to bridge that together. Similar vein, meeting experience. You look at the meetings in Webex Teams and Webex meetings today, classic Webex meetings, almost identical. And that's going to continue to look even more and more alike. And then, of course, we have Webex calling being wired directly into Teams. So that confusion being lifted, and now how did we get past the obstacles? So, whenever I put a presentation together, I take a look at all the slides and try to figure out, what's the money slide? Hey, the money slide is the one you want everybody to take the picture of, the one you want people to put up on Twitter. This is the money slide right here, because this shows all the different ways that Webex Teams has grown over the last 4.5 years. Each of these items, we could spend easily an hour, we could spend a whole day talking about some of these. This is the big difference. Nobody else has this. And if you're not familiar with all 32 of these that I called out, and these were my 32, I'm sure some of you may have a little bit different ones if you wanted to see, what are the big differentiators. But this is a very important list. If you're a partner, it's time to sell. If you're a customer and a user, it's time to start using it, because all the excuses people may have had at the beginning, they're gone, and then some. So, that's the end of this story, but the reality is it's the beginning, because of all those 32 things, it's go time for Webex Teams. We're seeing adoption rise. We're seeing more and more people use it. It's really starting to hit its peak. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, check out G2.com. If you're not familiar with that, that's basically the Yelp of IT applications. And my personal favorite, changed my life, up in the middle there. Doesn't get any better than that. Love to continue the conversation. Find me on Webex Teams. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on LinkedIn. Love to connect. Keep talking.
Applause for Chris Palermo.